Welcome back to Our Canada, Our Future. We're talking about Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, with Irene Berkowitz from Audience Lab. Irene, we've talked a lot about the concerns about the scope of this bill and what it's failing to do or getting wrong about creating and supporting Canadian content. I wanted to talk about some of the people who are impacted by this. You'd alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but there are a lot of content creators out there who've been quite vocal in speaking out against this bill. Maybe you could talk a bit about a couple of those stories and what their criticisms are of what this bill would do to them.
100%. I'd like to actually start, since I did mention the new media creators, I'd like to start with the critics in terms of even the fundamentals of the legacy creators, which they talk about the urgency to level the playing field. And many have suggested that the playing field is already level due to the policy regulation that I was talking about before, simultaneous substitution, which adds a 30% audience. And then the policy regime quite brilliantly required the legacy broadcasters to invest 30% of their revenues, making the net contribution of the legacy broadcasters zero. So if anything, the playing field, it could be argued that the playing field is actually weighted against the streamers, because all they have is their content and whatever audience they collect and whatever people they can convince to subscribe. So that's a sort of glaring criticism by the new media creators. Now, the new media creators have come out in force against being included in this bill. People like the number one YouTube channel, the CEO of that channel, Morgan Fortier, which that channel is called Super Simple Songs. It gets 43 billion views around the world, and it depends entirely because there's a lot of good regulation against advertising for children on YouTube, and particularly in the US, and it depends on its YouTube revenues, and it's not so-called official Canadian content. When we did our study on YouTube, we learned that these creators, they're doing their content on the fly. They don't file paperwork. They don't employ people in the same way. We were very, very conservative with our assessment of part-time employment, only 1/5, because they're saying to their friend, will you help me out on Tuesday and then maybe next Friday? And we still calculated 30,000, around 28,000 jobs, which has been further corroborated in the last two Oxford economic reports on YouTube by YouTube reports by Oxford Economics. So we're all coming to the same numbers. There's slightly different methodologies. So all these revenues derive from rising in the audience rankings by the algorithm. And the YouTube is a living lab, again, because it gives back the creator all this data about how they're doing, where they're doing it. And there's some tremendously fascinating stories about YouTube creators like the icing artist who found that her cake decorating videos were doing very well in the Mideast, adjusted to subtitles, leaped her subscribers from 30,000 to 1 million, now has 3 million, quit her job as a cabinet maker. Her husband quit his job as a cabinet maker, and now they're supporting their entire family of, I think they have 2 children, on YouTube. TikTok creators similarly have done the same kind of thing. Darcy Michael, a TikTok creator, has testified in the Senate. So the creators are very concerned about applying content quotas for which there is no proof that they have ever built audiences. Just to end here, but legacy, with all the content sort of push type of discoverability rather than pull or demand, the audiences for Canadian content that uses the most public funds, which is premium, primetime, expensive drama, have really been stuck at under 10% for 4 decades. So we have this giant success story.
Interesting.
in new
Yeah,
media.
you really laid out the sort of big difference between the then and now. Well, listen, this is a fascinating topic. I think it'd be interesting to watch this as it proceeds through the Senate. But I want to thank you very much, Irene, for joining us today to talk about this bill, and hopefully we'll have you back later to talk about it a bit more. I want to thank you, the audience, and we'll see you next time on Our Canada, Our Future.